All right, welcome back to part 2 of this video series on making these little sheet metal toolboxes. Today, or in this video, this next step, we're going to work on making these end pieces, which give you the shape of the toolbox, and then we're going to spot weld them into the bottom of our box. All right. So these are fairly easy, but you have to make 2 of them. And again, the better these come out, the better your box is going to work and look and function. So we'll get them marked out, we'll cut them, and then I'll show you guys how to use our little spot welder over there to weld them into the ends of the toolbox. All right, so if we look at our instructions here for the end of our toolbox, you'll see here we have an end. We've got some dimensions for the overall width, the height, but then we're going to knock the corners off, and we're also going to knock the corner off down here as well, so that it fits into our box the way it should. So the first one, these should be already cut to the right dimension for you guys. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to have to figure out this 1 5/8 from each end in, and then 2 5/8 up from the bottom so that we can knock off this big corner. Using our ruler. All right, so what was the measurement again? We got to go 1 5/8 from the end in and the end in to get our dimension. So we're gonna just line up the end of our box, or end of our piece on a starting point. So we have 1 inch, 1.5 inches, and then this is 1 5/8. And we're gonna do the same thing from this side. So we have 1 inch, that's 1.5 inches, and then one mark next is 1 5/8. So there's our 2 marks. So now we got to measure up from this bottom edge to 2 5/8 to get our mark to knock it off, to knock the corner down. So we're going to come over here. Here's the bottom. And we're going to go, what was it? 2 5/8. 1, 2, here's a half. Here's our 5/8 mark. So right there. And do the same thing on the other side. 1, 2, half, and 2 5/8. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line connecting those marks so that we can cut them off. So here's one. Okay, and then here's another one. And once you have these marked, take a minute to look at it. Make sure it looks correct. If it looks like one side's off, it might be. So you might want to double check to make sure that these fit properly. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a chamfered corner. And so basically what that means is we're just going to knock the corner off, but we want to do it 1/8 of an inch each direction. So we're going to come 1/8 there, and we're going to do 1/8 this direction. And this is really small, so we're just going to kind of knock this corner off just a little bit. You can see how I marked that corner. So we're going to do the same thing on the other corner, and then we'll cut them. So there's one, there's the other one, so then we're just gonna knock them off. Okay, we don't wanna make those huge, but we're not too super concerned about how those pieces fit. So we'll get the other one marked real quick, and then we'll get them both cut. Now that we've got this marked up, we need to cut it. And really the best way to cut these in here is gonna be with these tools. We do have another tool that can do this. And it's our big shear. We'll make our little cuts here with our hand shears. So we just kind of line them up on our cut marks and just knock the corners off. And then we'll make our big cuts using our sheet metal shear. This is our sheet metal shear, and it's a big device used for cutting sheet metal. And used incorrectly, this can be a very dangerous machine and can injure you pretty badly if you're not careful. This big yellow thing here is a guard and a hold down device. And it's meant to keep you from putting your fingers underneath it and getting them into the blade. So if we look down here, you can see the edges of the blade down there. And we definitely don't want to get your fingers in there. So turn the machine on with the start button, and it has a foot pedal. You have to lift this little flap up and then put your foot in there and step down. So then if I step down on it, you'll see it come down and come back up. So one way to keep yourself from getting injured with this machine is don't put your foot in here until you're ready to start making a cut. All right, and the way this works, we want to take our mark, our line, and we want to try to line it up with our blade, and see if I can get this without the glare in there. So you can see there our mark is lined up pretty close on our blade. Turn the machine on. Put our foot in there, and then we can, oops, I just moved it. All right, pretty close, so we can go ahead and make our cut. Slide our piece out, and we notice we got a nice straight cut, although it looks like I missed my line a little bit. So we're going to trim that off. Pull it out, we got a nice straight cut on our piece of metal. We'll go ahead and do the other side real quick. So we push it in here, line it up as best we can. It's kind of hard to see with camera and a light in the way. And again, just like on our bends, we're trying to split the difference on our cut line. So you can see it just barely. There's just a little bit of our cut line left there. So we'll go ahead and get the other one cut real quick. Again, make sure your fingers are not underneath that yellow part, because it will mash them good. All right, make sure the machine's off, turn our light off, and now we're ready to go spot weld those into the end of our toolbox. Before we go to the spot welder, we want to take a minute and double check, make sure these fit in here the way that they should. If we need to do any little trimming or tweaking of the box to make them fit as best we can, now's the time to do it. You don't want to try to do that after it's spot welded. This is our spot welder, and this machine uses electricity, and it goes through these tongs. And when you squeeze them together and you pull the trigger or push the button, it sends electricity through there, and the resistance of the electrical flow between the 2 points heats our metal, and we push down on it really hard, and it squeezes the two while it melts it, and it makes it into what's called a spot weld. So it's got a timer. The timer should be set already for you guys. You don't need to be messing with that. And then we've got our on switch, and the machine is on. And then we have this little black lever here, and this is how you trigger the machine. And you can push it that way or this way, or push it up or down. Either direction works. So I'm gonna do a quick demo for you guys, since this does require the use of both hands. This one's gonna be a little rough, so I've got a couple pieces of scrap here. So you'll see there's 2 pieces there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them in here, and there's a foot pedal here, and you push down on it, and you wanna put all your pressure down on it. You want to push down nice and hard so that they can wiggle, but we don't want any gap between them. Any gap in there is what creates sparks, and when you have sparks, it's going to get a little sketchy. So here's our trigger. So we're going to reach up here, and we're going to pull the trigger. And here, see, there's no sparks because I have it pushed down nice and tight. But see, now those 2 pieces are welded together. See that little weld? It's called a spot weld. So we'll go ahead and spot weld in our ends of our toolbox real quick. And what we want to do is do 2, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 in the middle, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So you're going to do 2, 5, and 7 spot welds on each end. This is where you're going to need both hands. And you might get a friend to help you. What I like to do is try to start on this middle one right here first. And then I'll work my way out and up on each side. So we'll push it in, and these always line up. So if you can see where the top one's going, you don't have to worry about where the bottom one is. So we'll put this one right here in the middle as best we can. We're gonna push down nice and firm. On this trigger, you wanna hold it till the machine shuts off on its own. Remember, it's on a timer, so it'll shut off once it's reached its time limit. So we'll go ahead and do this one. We're gonna push down nice and hard. So the machine shuts off, and we let go of the trigger, lift up, and then we can move to our next spot weld, which is gonna be the one over here. Same thing, we're gonna push down nice and hard. You can hold the box. It's not gonna hurt you. You're not gonna get electrocuted. Hold it down. See that we're getting a little sparks? There was a little bit of a gap in there. So again, we're gonna do the same thing over here. Push it down. Okay, you'll notice I held it with my hand and didn't get hurt. Okay, now we're gonna do the two sides, and we wanna squeeze these ones together as best we can. One of the things is, this one's a little tricky. You wanna make sure the inside edge of your box doesn't touch here when you do your spot welds, okay? Because it can cause some problems. It can create a little arc burn on the side of your box. So there we've got it. So we've got it turned just a little bit. Okay. And do the next one. Right about there. Okay. And we'll go to do this side. And same thing. We'll just turn the box a little bit. And they are warm, but they're not hot to the point where they're gonna burn you. So we're gonna line it up. Okay, we're gonna rotate the box just a little bit. Okay. We'll do the last one on this side, and then we'll do the other side. Okay, so that end is spot welded. All right, so there's the bottom of our box. We've got our ends spot welded in there pretty nicely. The next step that we need to do is the top of our toolbox. And this one's got a little bit more layout work to do, real similar to the bottom, but we also have to add in mounting points for our handle and for the top part of our latch here.